Good evening all, it's Wild Weather for LiveWeatherBlogs.com, and today we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to start here in the Caribbean, uh, and we have an area of disturbed weather right in here. Um, to bear some watching here, this is where I thought once we got maybe a leftover Cape Verde system to come in here to get going, and that is what the models are showing. Disturbed area of weather, there might be a slight circulation right in here. Is going to move off to the west and develop slowly. Is more than likely in the next 2 to 4 days going to become Tropical Storm Matthew. Development at first will be slow, but once it gets over into this region here, maybe get Tropical Storm Matthew, say by, I would say Friday or so, Thursday night, Friday into Saturday. So we'll see what happens. Should stay south of Jamaica, which is here. Again, probably Tropical Storm Matthew moving off here. Looking at some of the computer models to see where eventually this Tropical says Matthew, more than likely. Has it pretty far south here. I'm not near like this as it's showing. As it's jumping around a little. I wonder if it's more up in this area here, so maybe a case where the models might have to verify a little bit better and be repositioned off to the north. But we'll see. Looks like we're going to head west mainly, and then you have a few members going off to the north. This is exactly in line with what I was talking about could happen down the road. I've been talking about this back on September the 14th, what I thought may be coming down the road and what my visions were for the end of the, toward the latter part of the tropical season. I kind of favor this track going up here into the Yucatan Channel and then coming up into the Gulf of Mexico. Let me go back to some of the blogs I put way back on the 14th. One I had on there, and I was concerned about Canada, the power gesture to the north, wild weather in September and October, and then I talked about the Gulf Coast. Connecticut later in September and getting early to mid-October. See a wreck in the Alabama at the west coast of Florida area. That's where I was thinking back on September 14th. But now getting to some of the long-range models come in, I think was 14th, as I was looking at the pattern. Maybe time that really wanting to happen. There was another blog I had on the 15th, and in the blog I also talked about what's going to happen when the jet stream eventually does come further south, and maybe coming up in the boring weather we had in the mid-Atlantic here may rapidly be replaced stormy weather. That remains to be seen. Severe weather to into the stronger than normal jet stream possible, and then lead the tropical systems are coming down and to wait and see what happens. The Gulf, though, we're going to take a look and see. As we look at over the Atlantic as a whole, here's Tropical Storm Lisa. Tropical Storm Lisa, I do not think will be any threat over the east coast of the United States. Tropical Storm Lisa probably move off to the north, meander around a little bit, and one of these will come down, probably swing it off in this direction out. It's still highly susceptible whether or not this will be a hurricane. Has a chance, the window for it to become a hurricane is very small. Either one or two things, dry air and the shear may get to this, and we'll have to see what happens. Here's that disturbed area over the Caribbean, just west of the Leeward Islands. It was looking better organized earlier. It looks a little like it's faded out. It'll come back, so just wait and see. I would say probably by this time tomorrow we'll be looking at another big flare up here. There's a little bit of shear here as you see the clouds getting ripped off here. Maybe a little shear in this area, but shear should lessen here as high pressure builds off the east coast and gets into this westerly flow here. I do like the idea of a Matthew developing down in this area. This is the area I thought we'd have to start looking at as we get away from the Cape Verde season. And I can see an eventual track of Matthew. One possible, I gotta lay the pass out there. Can't just go with the track I think or favor because I don't happen 2 weeks ago. That's not the way it works here. We're gonna go ahead and give it two possible tracks. Matthew heading more west and then moving into Belize and Honduras up here. That's a possibility. Kind of like a, if you remember back, Hurricane Mitch track. I don't know that it'll ever get quite that strong, but you never can tell. These waters out here are pretty much untouched, and they're primed. They're waters, and that goes right up into the Gulf of Mexico. This eastern Gulf of Mexico has not been touched. That's one of the things I was really concerned about going into September and October. This area becomes climatologically favorable for hurricanes. And I'm going to show you a hurricane past that's kind of caught my eye, and I remember very well. And I'm wondering if, I'm hoping this doesn't happen, but I'm wondering if we might see a type of system like that. I'll show you that in a moment. Here are the two tracks, though. Matthew goes perhaps west, maybe it hits Honduras and goes into Belize and then dissipates over Central America. But the other track I'm kind of leaning toward a little bit more is this high pressure gives away and a trough comes in section. Matthew comes up here into the Yucatan Channel and then positions itself into the Gulf of Mexico, ready to strike perhaps the Florida coast. I'm thinking the area, I'm going to narrow this down because I was saying back September 14th, I thought Mobile Bay on the Key West, somewhere along the west coast. I'm really starting to pin my attention to Walton Beach, down here to about Fort Myers. This area right here, if you're in this area, alright, it's not too early to start thinking about what preparation you may have, hurricane kits you need to update and whatnot. It's that time of the year for you folks down here in this part of the Gulf Coast where tropical systems either develop in the Bay of Campeche or down here in the Caribbean, east of Honduras. So this is climatically favorable at this point, and the models are showing now. They weren't exactly showing it when I was talking about it on the 14th, but they're showing it. I'm becoming more and more confident that we may have a system to deal with and reckon with. Some of the models are showing a category, very strong category 2, if not 3 hurricanes sitting out here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. I know it's just a model. It's just a time for awareness, like Weather Guy 3 said back there. Awareness is a good thing to have at this time of the year. It is hurricane season after all, and you folks down there, you need to just be aware that something may be, okay? And the models that show this, a Euro shows 953 millibar low sitting here just off of Tampa Bay, Florida, and that's it's a little alarming. All right, so you want to definitely just check back here at liveweatherblogs.com as we get toward. It really looks like about the October 2nd to 5th time frame is where the models are showing this. Originally, I was thinking September 30th to about October 2nd. We're pushing that back a little bit as this system slowly moves up in the Gulf here. The Gulf will be open for business. Another thing that pinpointed that for me and thinking that this could be a possibility, and I was going positive. We're going to start opening the Gulf of Mexico for something to come up the East Coast. So you're in Tampa Bay, over the Fort Walton Beach, this area here, Fort Myers area, you want to keep an eye. The Gulf of Mexico is going to open up from south-southwest to north-northeast, and whatever system does eventually may develop down here, may start walking the East Coast and give very beneficial rains up here. That all is speculation at this point. I can see how it happens with an NEO going positive, though. Alright, let's go back. I want to go back in time to this. This is 1995. And when I thought of a hurricane hitting the Gulf Coast or that possibility of such a thing happening going in September to October, I always thought about Hurricane Opal. Hurricane Opal, it was a disorganized area, and then it got down here and finally developed near Cozumel. Across the Yucatan and really got going in the Bay of Campeche and flew north and made landfall not too far from Fort Walton Beach as a Category 3 hurricane as it then moved up the East Coast. I think that this is a possibility. A hurricane with some of the strength of maybe an Opal from 1995 could be a possibility, but none of this track looks interesting to me. It could be a track like this for what may become Matthew, but I think at this time you might take this track here and move it over in here and up the East Coast. We'll see what happens in time. You know, I'm becoming a little bit more interested in this area. Fort Walton Beach down to Tampa Bay and Fort Myers for a potential hurricane strike. Whether or not a hurricane or it does eventually up in here at the East Coast, that remains in this area I'm becoming a little bit more concerned with. There are two possibilities if Matthew, if it develops anyway, comes here, could come across and head east-northeast, harmlessly, have to be a strong jet stream knocking in from the west, or maybe that NAO does go pretty good positive and we come up the East Coast. Time will tell. There you go, that's a scare light back in 1995. That's Opal, alright? I'm thinking it could look something like this back, coming up on October 5th, except for maybe not, maybe it's not here. Maybe it's over here near Tampa Bay and up across the Piedmont up the East Coast. We shall see. Here's the water vapor map. You see this corridor of clouds here. You can see this trough retrograding to the west. That'll be the avenue eventually that will steer Matthew up the east. There's another trough that's going to replace it. Two get together and you have a trough, and you got a trough digging here, comes eastward, east-southeastward, and then we get something coming up in this section here. So again, you're down here in Fort Walton Beach to Fort Myers, anywhere in between Apalachicola, Cedar Grove, Cedar Key rather, Newport Richey, Tampa Bay, Sarasota. I'm not trying to just yet, but we may have something to look at down the road. The models are showing it. The Euro, the Canadian, GFS has been the most consistent in the say 40, 35, 40 runs, and showing that something's going to start going in the Gulf of Mexico. So keep abreast of the situation and the league out there. Don't worry about it for right now. We're going to keep an eye on what's going on in the Caribbean because that could be a little development here off the southeast coast. But one thing at a time here. Get your preparedness kits ready just in. Okay, this is Live Weather Blogs. This is Wild Weather for LiveWeatherBlogs.com. Everyone have a good night.